So welcome. This is Beyond Coding, unlocking your skills for life, essentially, and your career through video games education. Is anyone here interested in working in games or currently working in games or studying games? Put your hand up. Quite a few, okay. Is anyone here just for the fun of it? Nice, good work. You made it halfway. Okay, if anyone knows exactly what a career in games is like, and that would be a 10, right? And a 1 is, I have no idea, what are you talking about? Do you just play games all day? Okay, so if you're closer to a 10, put your hands up. Okay, it's got a few people. And a 1, you have no idea what games is like. That's fair. Okay, so a nice mix. So this panel will be essentially deep diving into a little bit about the skills that you can form from a games education, but not only that and how they apply to a games career, but what you could actually take from that into other parts of your life. So that's pretty cool because games is very broad and has a lot of incredible disciplines and jobs in it. If you make one character in a game, it takes at least 8 different disciplines. You've got 3D art, 2D art, rigging. I could go on. I'm not going to bore you with that. So just to give you a little background, I'll throw it to these folks shortly. My name's Sorcha, pronounced Sorcha but spelled Sorcha. It's very confusing. You can make up a nickname if you want. I get it all the time. I'm from Playside Studios, so we're the largest independent game developer in Australia. We have like more than 340 people now. It's crazy. I don't know where we fit them all. We make a lot of different games like Dumb Ways to Die, Age of Darkness, and so forth. So I've been in games for 10 years, and my background now, coming from project management and then customer service, and now I'm doing industry relations. So I get to come and talk to people about cool jobs in games all the time, which is awesome. So this panel is really important to me, I think, because I actually didn't follow a games education directly, but I've learned from everyone else that I've worked with how many valuable skills they've gained from that. And I think it's important that we touch on how that can relate to other aspects of your career in life too. So I'll throw it to George for an intro.
Hi everybody, my name is George Martin. I am a digital media and game design tutor at University of South Australia. I am currently doing a PhD investigating virtual reality video game design through a lens of the horror genre, which I find quite interesting. My background is in video game development. I developed a studio here and developed a commercial video game that we released across Switch, Xbox, PlayStation and Steam. So I've got experience working on a diverse range of platforms.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Lauren Woolbright. I am fairly new to Australia. I moved here about 1.5 years ago from Michigan in the US. My background is very non-traditional because I have 2 degrees in literature and 1 in writing. And so I came to games by way of narrative. So I was sitting, reading lots of big fat Victorian novels at the same time my husband was playing Dragon Age Origins, and I was making a lot of connections. So I got interested in making and writing about games. So most of what I do at Flinders is research focused. I am a lecturer as well, so I do teach in the games production and in the VED, the visual effects and entertainment design programs there. But I also I'm the director of the Games Research Lab, which brings together folks from across the university, from other universities, and from industry to make games together and imagine better games together.
Amazing. Thanks, Lauren. And I'll pass it to Simon.
Hi, I'm Simon Scales and I'm the director of CW Studios, School of Visual Effects and Entertainment Design. So we partner with Flinders University to offer a bachelor degree in video games and entertainment design, which is really cool. We now have facilities in Adelaide, Sydney and Melbourne as well, so it's really growing. And yeah, been working in the industry for 20 years. I'm the executive producer on the new Lego movie that just came out, Piece by Piece, the Pharrell Williams documentary, which is really cool. So yeah, the things I do.
Really broad background of different education areas and everything too, which is awesome. And I think if anyone noticed, we have a bit of games here, but we also have a bit of entertainment design. So we'll touch on that a bit, but there are a lot of skills you can develop in games that are similar to other industries and that can go back and forward as well. So I think to go back to my character design example, if we take has anyone got a favorite game you want to call out? Just throw one in.
Horizon Zero Dawn.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so we take a character. Actually, I haven't played Horizon Zero Dawn, so I know it's horrible.
You know
but
who Aloy is.
Yeah, I know who Aloy is. So if we take the main character, pop her in the game, we already have about 8 different roles. So we want to have a 2D concept artist to make up what she looks like, maybe a designer to come up with some background lore, producer to make sure everyone's on task, a rigger to put the bones in, someone to animate her, and then maybe if you're lucky you get a 3D artist, but maybe someone focused on textures as well, and then you have to put her in the game with the designer, and then if there's any problems, the engineering department might have to help everyone fix them. And then we have testing as well. So there's at least, I lost count because I was talking so much, but about 6 different roles. So if we look at that and we go back to, I guess, games education as a whole, what would you say are some of the more unique skills that you can develop through a games education, and whether that be technical or soft skills overall?
I'll start, I guess, just for someone to start. But for me, I would definitely talk to just the management of time, like problem solving, project management, those kind of fun buzzwords. I know it sounds super boring, but I'm quite passionate about managing projects, managing time, and making sure that we hit deadlines. So, you know, it's these deadlines that you get on assignments, they're simulating a real life experience. You know, I've been in a commercial studio where we've been producing a game. We need to get prepared for a showcase like Sage today, and there's lots of things that need to happen before you can showcase the game. You need the programmers getting the programming done, all these different roles aligning to make sure things are ready for an event like this. So when you're going through your formal education through a university, you are kind of practicing these skills of meeting deadlines and managing your time across a variety of different tasks. You might have multiple courses at the same time. I can assure you when you're in a small studio, you have multiple things you need to get done and you wear multiple hats. So that'll be my 5 cents to this.
So a lot of time management, organisation.
I would just add that if you think about what you're going to be studying when you do games production or something like that, you would imagine that you're focusing on the skills development so that you can do your part for the game development. But just as Sorcha was saying, if you have all of these different people with their different skill sets trying to come together to create one outcome, you need to be able to work in teams, so communicate well with other people, verbally and in writing. There's often a game design document that people keep and share information through that. So you need to be able to communicate your needs from the perspective of your skill set, and you also need to understand theirs. And if you are missing each other, you need to be able to listen carefully and understand that, and then work through those problems and solve them together. So anytime you're being assigned a collaborative thing in class, most people are like, God help me, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be graded together with someone, or I just want to focus on my idea, and I don't want anyone else's hands on my idea, or I don't want to do someone else's idea. But you're actually building so many of those skills that are sort of not necessarily assessed formally, but are so important. And they're things that you can highlight in your interview process as well. Talk about your experiences on teams and how you worked through issues. Those are lovely skills to build.
So we've got time management, organisation, completing things. I wish we could just play games all day, but that's not the case. Getting tasks done, working together. And Simon, I know that at CDW, a lot of the classes, you try to really simulate that kind of environment too for the students and make sure they've got tasks and deadlines. But yeah, is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think all of those are fantastic points. And I think, at CW Studios, one of the things we really focus on is trying to help students become like world-class artists. And all of the things that George and Lauren have spoken about are really important to doing that as well. But, kind of like building resilience and, focusing on like honing your craft over those years is like really, really important and can be difficult. And you need to kind of have all the skills that were spoken about just before to be able to do that. And a lot of times you are working by yourself, but we really try and teach people throughout the degree that being a good person is very important as well, because you're hardly ever working by yourself. Even if you become a freelancer where you're an independent contractor, you're still dealing with a team of people and you need to be able to talk to them, communicate with them, not be a bad person to work with. So that's all really important, as well as building up those skills so that you can be amazing at drawing dragons or 3D modelling cars or whatever it is that you're going to do. But I think all those things together will help you get to the place that you want to go to.
If you don't mind, can I follow up? what do you mean by resilience? I know what you mean, but maybe they don't.
Yeah, well, I was talking to someone before, like you get out of uni and you got to apply for lots of jobs and that can take time and you're going to get lots of no's before you get a yes. So you just have to build that resilience to keep fighting through, be confident that your skills are good and what you're doing is all on the right track. So, and we do see that, the students that come through that have those skills, they're the ones that sort of tend to find those jobs, and the students that tend to shy away from some of that stuff, they find it a bit more difficult getting a job, right? So, yeah.
Did you want to say something, George?
I've got nothing more to add. I think that's a really good summary.
I was going to say that even once you do land a job and end up on a team, you still need resilience because people are going to tell you they don't like what you did, whether that's a client you might be working for or a teammate or your team lead, and you have to be able to take that with grace. And it can be really hard, so you have to start practicing that in your topics when you're getting assessed. And you can go to your instructor and ask them, like, why was it marked this way? You can get a little bit of context, but you have to learn not to take it personally because it isn't personal.
You beat me to it. I was actually going to echo what you were all saying. A really big part of games is, of course, collaborating together, and entertainment design and all of those creative industries. You're making things that other people have to work with and that other people need to see and put into a game or a movie or something like that. So you have to get really good at accepting and taking feedback with grace. And I think that's a big part of, as you're saying, where the resilience comes into play. There's that tenacity to not take it personally, but to take it on board and adapt. Things are always changing, and in this industry, there's always technology changing as well. Things are up and down. There's a lot to learn. So being resilient will help you overcome that as well.
And one of the things I find that's super interesting is just like at our school specifically, we have a lot of different instructors that are all working in the industry, and someone might show them their work and you're going to get 4 different responses as to how you should change that, what should be different, all those sorts of things. And I always tell students, like, you have to choose which bit you're going to change or fix or things like that, right? So that's also comes into it, is like, especially when you're working in the industry, you're going to get all sorts of different types of feedback. So you have to kind of filter the parts that are important, and that's a really big thing to be able to do as well. Yeah.
Are there any other soft skills that are important in the industry and that you find are a good opportunity to develop through education as well?
Well, I think, there's like a ton of soft skills. Like I think all of them, all of the soft skills are important, right? Because they tend to lead to that being a good person to work with, right? If you're easygoing, you can take on board feedback, you can adapt, you can troubleshoot, you can, find things on Google that you don't know how to do or whatever the case may be. Like all of that stuff is part of your package that you kind of sell to get into the industry. I'm assuming most people here are trying to be like, how do I get into the industry, and all those types of things. So that's all part of the package that you use to help get your foot in the door. And then once you're there, all of those soft skills are really important to keep working with the team and work your way up through the ranks at your various companies and things like that.
I was just going to add a comment about from an independent perspective. I've been in a situation where I've tried to get jobs in industry and found that I couldn't just because of whatever reason. Maybe I wasn't competitive enough, that's fine. But we went on to form our own little studio, and that in itself takes a lot of resilience and those soft skills, because you are working with a small team, doing something quite difficult and building a business around developing games. So if that is a pathway you choose to take, a lot of these skills are really useful in doing that as well.
So on top of having very unique disciplines and creative roles, so we've gone all the way from 2D to 3D, and there's also really quite technical jobs like rigging, technical art as well, literally called technical art. There you go. We have a really wide variety of roles in games, and I'm curious to hear from everyone else, especially because you've got quite broad backgrounds. What are the roles or the skills that could actually transfer between, and do you see there being an overlap of jobs between other industries?
I think it's always a good idea to, if you find yourself reaching an obstacle in your development process, like you've gotten a character up to a point and you need to do the rigging, and you haven't necessarily learned to do that yourself, and you don't have anyone who's going to be able to do that, try and learn it yourself, or seek help putting it together. If you're already on a team, and it's not a sort of build it yourself kind of studio, then you should have plenty of resources in terms of mentorship and access to people with more experience than you, one would hope. But if you're working in an independent studio and you're trying to sort of cobble it together, then the internet is a great resource. So being able to seek out information and then vet the information and see like how good is it actually, then try it out yourself and figure out where you actually do need another person who's really focused in that. But we definitely find rigging is something we need a lot. I guess everyone finds it boring, but it's so critical. So if you learn how to rig stuff, you will get a job because we need you.
It's a good point, actually. Some of the smaller indie or small studios I've worked at, when we hire animators, if they can rig, that's great. And often you end up needing to know anyway, because if you need to understand why your character's clipping and all of the body parts are merging together in a weird way, it's great fun. You need to know why. And that also gives you skills to be able to talk to other people who have that role. So there is a benefit in learning about what other people do, even if you're just trying it and you're botching it up in Unity and it looks horrible, at least you know and you can understand how to work with them better.
Or even at the level of like what program to use and how to export the files. Something that granular can be an important piece.
Yeah, I think at the moment for students or people that are new to the industry and stuff, it's like the most exciting time that there's ever been in the like games and animation and TV kind of industry. There's just so much of it now. There's so many opportunities, and even people, if you're not quite getting an opportunity yet, you're probably doing stuff that's in part of the industry and things that like there's so many opportunities in like YouTube, Patreon, Instagram, all sorts of things. I won't name names, but recently I went to a convention in LA, and there was a person tabling at the convention. They were from Adelaide, and they have 300,000 followers on their Instagram account, and for this very unique reason, they've never actually worked in the industry, and they have 300,000 followers, and they're making a full-time job from various things they can sell through Instagram and all that kind of stuff. So it's really awesome. But on the flip side, it's also incredibly difficult because when you're talking about skills kind of crossing over, I'm a 2D artist, and even coming from like a 2D point of view, there's so many things you have to do now to be competitive in the field. I need to know how to use Blender. I need to be using UE5. I need to be drawing. I need to be, painting digital art. So you've kind of got to like do a lot of different things now, which does make it difficult for people kind of starting out. Like all of the things that we said before about, being resilient and trying different things and all those kinds of things, they all relate back to this, and they're the things you need to do. But it's super exciting time, but it's also really it's quite difficult and competitive because everyone in the world now has got access to the internet and all the different tools you can use and stuff. So you kind of have to compete with everyone from around the world. But there's so many more opportunities, which is fantastic.
And I guess to that point, in a good way, what benefits people from studying a games course, now that we've got all the internet and the competitiveness of that too, how would that help people to understand what's out there and what kind of jobs there are and build their skills?
I was going to talk to connections. Just the people that you study with are realistically the people who are following you into that career pathway. So these are people who are going to be going into the same kind of careers as you, and they can themselves offer opportunities. But you have connections through your lecturers, your tutors, the people you meet along the way. And I would say, just echoing the seeking help and the kind of exciting time we're in, the local Adelaide development scene is actually really, really welcoming. And they have a Discord server. You can ask questions. They're pretty supportive in my experience. So I think it is just a really exciting time to get into games and make these connections. And more importantly, put yourself out there and market yourself, because you are seeking jobs, and these people that are here presenting today and studying with you potentially in the future are the people who potentially may go, oh yeah, I actually studied with someone who was really good at 2D art, and they'll reach out to you, and that can be a way to get yourself into the industry as well.
It's not what you know, it's who you know.
I was going to just add to that the other, besides the skill sets and of the folks that that you might be partnering up with to collaborate, You also have to maybe think about the personalities. So if you know that you're an introvert, maybe if you're neurodivergent and you know you're going to struggle with all the social stuff or the business stuff, find people who you know, who you trust, who have those other personality types. Send your extrovert out to do the hard social type jobs and all the self-promotion that exhausts you, right? So that's another thing to consider.
I think that network building is a really important point, especially in a class environment, and you're forced into group projects or you do them by yourself, whatever. It really gives you that opportunity to simulate working in a team environment, which you 100% do all the time in games and all creative industries. So like you're saying, even when I entered games, everyone I knew at that time, I've grown with over the last 8 to 10 years. So that in itself, you form your little community around you, and it's really invaluable to know who they are and to form those connections. And you never know when someone will go, oh, hey, are you looking for a job? Here's this thing, or come to this event even, or I've got this lunch I'm going to. I've made jobs through people going to lunch. It sounds so weird, but through connections and just meeting people, and they're like, actually, we've got this thing going, would you want to interview? So taking that opportunity to really build your network is great. And on that note, if there are, I guess, particularly specific things that you want to learn in university, and then you can also go quite broad. So I know some degrees teach the first 2 years, they might be game design, engineering, arts. You get a little bit of everything, and then you can specialise, or you do a capstone. I think that can be quite valuable, we're saying, to learn about other roles too. But I'm curious what you think about the controversial topic, really, of generalising versus specialising as roles. So in games, especially, if you maybe consider a small studio versus a large, and whether someone should focus on having a niche specialty like tech art, or if they learn multiple things.
Yeah, I know there's a few students, past and present, in the room, so they kind of know my theory on this, but I think it's very important to just build your fundamentals. So get your fundamentals down pat, because basically what that means is then you can do anything, and you can specialize in any area you want if you have the fundamentals kind of locked down first. So that's really important. So so when you're starting, any type of degree or study or whatever the case may be, you want to try and learn those basic things first, whether it's coding or art or, 3D or rigging or whatever. You want to really get those fundamentals down first, and then you can really build on that. Because a lot of people, I think one thing that's maybe not talked about a little bit, I do hear the term specialisation, being like a generalist a lot. And what I find is that if you go to companies where there's a generalist, that generalist has been there for 20 years, right? They're not really a generalist. They're just good at all the different things because they've had time to work on all those things, right? So I think for students and people starting out, a good way of looking at that is trying to get really good at one particular thing. And it doesn't mean you have to specialise. It doesn't mean you're just I can only draw dragons, that's it, right? It just means that what I want you, and just using drawing example, it could be 3D, it can be whatever, right? But you just want to get good at drawing all the things. So you want to learn the base level stuff. And then after a while, you can get good at 3D modelling, and you can get good at, whatever the case may be. And that's going to all filter back to that fundamental base that you had. So I think that's really important. So I do think sometimes the generalisation versus specialisation stuff can be a bit misconstrued, just because everyone I know that's a generalist at a company, they're all been working in industry for 20 years, right? So that's my kind of thoughts on that.
Just wanted to say that I could only draw dragons for most of my childhood, so you're not wrong. And it's actually a really good point, because I studied communication or graphic design, and at the time there was a few games degrees, but I didn't really consider it was a career I could do, which I definitely am wrong about that now. But anyway, so in saying that, a lot of the fundamentals of graphic design that I learned, you can take into other industries. So it's actually really helped me when I was a project manager. I can talk to artists and understand why they're giving feedback a certain way, because a lot of graphic design principles are similar to art principles and so forth. You're talking about form and perspective and shape and harmony and contrast and all of that stuff. So if you find what you like, master those fundamentals, and then use that opportunity in learning to get a feel for what those jobs are and what other roles are too.
So I do agree with Simon that you should specialize when you're just developing your skills at the beginning so that you have a way to market yourself well. However, I come from a liberal arts background, so I'm definitely in favor of at least some dabbling, and I mean dabbling well outside the arts field, because what we're teaching you to make in these programs is the box that stuff is going to go into. And so where your ideas come from, like your idea for a meaningful play experience is probably going to come from some other thing that's happening in your life, whether that's a personal experience or a place that you traveled to, a person you met, or something that you heard in a class. So for me, it's always like the environmental sciences. I learn cool stuff about geology, and then I'm like, ooh, what if we played as a rock person? Or like learning cool stuff about whales. I'm like, oh, what would it be like to navigate only by sound? And what would it be like to create an environment completely underwater? And how would we like address those challenges? So you can give you sort of kickstart your creativity by looking outside of games. So if you feel ever that you've gone stagnant and you don't have any ideas, it's definitely a good idea to stop looking at the artists you love and stop looking at games and playing games for a minute. Go do something completely different.
Touch grass.
Yeah, do touch grass.
I was going to talk a bit about leaning into strengths too. You know, when I studied 3D art, and that was something that I was quite passionate about. I dabbled in a few different things, trying out 2D animation, 2D concept art. Eventually found a place in doing programming and developing my technical skills, and I found myself much stronger at dealing with the kind of technical side of game development than the artistic side. And leaning into that, that's where I kind of fell into my kind of multi-hatted role in a small indie studio as a technical artist. But it is like it's good to dabble in a few other things, because you may find something that resonates with you sstronger than you may not have realized that you were particularly skilled in that area. So it's good to practice a few things and find what you want your specialty to be.
And I want to echo that point that you're all coming to, especially Lauren, with the creativity. It's a creative industry. So you'll always be getting ideas and looking for things outside of what you're doing. And that's where I think learning about what other jobs are in the industry and getting a taste and dabbling in that, if you will, is really helpful. I had a hike I went on once where I was like, wow, wouldn't it be cool if we did this in a game update and we had these like weird big trees, and I don't know, it's hard to explain it now out of context, but you get the idea. Like you might be getting a shower thought somewhere that is not a shower and you want to put that in your game. So shower thoughts are good.
Keep a notebook.
Yeah, and I think another kind of soft skill that brings into place is patience. So I think that, when we kind of say these things is like, don't be in a rush for all of this either. Like just be patient. This stuff will happen over time and you kind of can't rush it. You just got to be patient and just know that hopefully wherever you are, the pathway that you're on is a good one, and you just got to follow it and trust your instincts and just be patient with it.
Well, if it's not a good one, you can shift. It's okay. Like when I graduated back in 2007, they told us that folks in our year would on average probably have 8 career changes. And so that's another piece of the resilience too, that you need to be open to the idea that you might need to shift paths slightly. And that might not mean abandoning the game industry, but it might mean looking at it differently, coming into it differently, developing skills that do make you happy if you're finding yourself unhappy.
And I think it's really interesting these days. We have a lot of course options that are available that you can do, diplomas and graduates and certificates, and slowly I see games creeping into high school, which is great. Thank you. Please do more of that. But I guess for the students or the young people out there that want to start exploring what these careers could look like, what would you recommend?
That is a good question.
You're welcome.
I have to think about it a sec. Anyone got an answer? Because I'm still thinking on it.
YouTube.
YouTube's good? Yeah, well, the amount of times I will go searching for answers, because I'll run into some kind of technical problem or like creative problem if I'm trying to do a particular thing in a modeling software and I don't quite know what to do. There are plenty of good tutorials. I, for a short while, started making some tutorials myself, because I actually found teaching other people to be a really good way to reinforce my own understanding of things. So, I don't know, find a friend, teach them if they really want to learn some things about game development. I find that's potentially a way to reinforce your own learning. But yeah, YouTube was mentioned, I do on a daily basis almost watch YouTube tutorials. So there are plenty of people out there who are quite knowledgeable. There's forums that you can go to look into problems that have happened before. Usually if you're encountering a problem, somebody else somewhere has had it before and somebody has talked through that problem. It's quite rare to find yourself in a situation where a problem hasn't occurred before. But even then, that's where you've got things like the Adelaide Game Developer Discord I found is quite good for that, because you can reach out to people and go, hey, has anyone encountered this before? And usually, again, somebody will chime in and say, hey, actually, yes, there's a checkbox in this drop-down menu. Just tick that and you'll be right.
Yeah, I think just research. You know, a lot of times when you're trying to find a job, you know, graduating university or courses, whatever, you just got to research like what companies are out there, what they want, what they want to see in your portfolio. You know, it's really important because a lot of times I'll even see it, like I'll see a really talented student and I'll recommend them for a job and they won't get the job because their portfolio is not matching what the employer kind of wants. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? Is just, you know, making sure if you want to work on Horizon Zero Dawn, like your work looks like it's a good match for that job. You're not drawing or 3D modeling something different to what that you know, client or employer would be looking for. So just researching and then really targeting your portfolio, making sure that, you know, what you're putting up online on Instagram and, you know, social medias is really showing the types of things that you want to do for work. If that's the position you're in, you know, you might be starting your own company or something, you know, indie game studio, whatever, that's different. But if you're sort of looking to get employed at a studio, just really researching the types of things that they want to see in your portfolio and then executing on that, right?
Sorry, did you want to go, Lauren?
Yeah, sure. So just to expand on what it means to research, so obviously you want to be looking into your companies that you might want to work for, like Simon's recommending, great recommendation. Also looking at what else is out there in the game space, like what have other people been doing that is similar to the thing that you're trying to do. And sometimes it can be hard to find these things. You'll just happen across them because someone posts something on Insta or whatever. And so it just surprises you. You're like, oh my gosh, it's the same little fox guy that I've been doodling for ages. So knowing what's out there can help you figure out whether you want to shift your idea slightly to make it more unique, or at least if you're going to be interviewing or pitching that idea, how to contextualize it within the context, like whatever's actually going on now, what else is out there. And so you can say, this is what's new and interesting about mine. And, you know, just make sure you're looking across disciplines as well. So it may not be something that's appeared in games. It could be in other media. It could be characters in film and television. So yeah, it's not, don't stay too locked in.
I know it can be scary for those people that are leaving high school or going to try and pick the right thing. So do you have any recommendations on what might help people choose the right course or job, or kind of start thinking about what they might want to do?
Same thing I just said,
yeah.
Research. Yeah, I mean, obviously these days everyone, you know, has all their courses online and has, you know, the student work and portfolios and all of the types of things that come out of those degrees and courses. So just really research and you know, contact the particular providers and ask some questions and you know, if they don't give you the right answers or it's not quite what you're looking for, you know, just move on to the next one and try and find the place that you think would be the best fit for you.
I mean, I think that developing the things that you are the most passionate about that really hook your interest and make you get excited and want to dig in for hard work would be a really good indication of where to begin. And you might find yourself shifting later, but at least you're going to be, you know, exploring the most, or the thing that's most aligned with your skills and affinities at the start. It's a good starting place. So, you know, just making sure that, oh, I've lost my thought. That's okay.
Did you want to add anything, George?
I was just going to add that, because you mentioned shifting, and I think that's a really important thing to remember, is you're not stuck, right? You're never stuck. There's always the opportunity, if you get partway through, to like mix it up a little bit. Obviously, it's perfect if you just land in the right course and just go straight through, and it's fine. But, you know, I actually found myself initially in mechatronic engineering, of all places. And it wasn't until I kind of did that for a little while and realized I didn't like it, and I actually had more of a passion for games and moved into doing games as my study. So you don't feel like if you start in the wrong place, you'll never make it, because you can always just move and shift and adapt. And I think that's an important thing to remember too.
I remember what I was going to say, sorry. So once you've developed your sort of starting place and what you're really good at, challenge yourself to do something different with it. So say you've been doodling that little fox character for a while now and you feel like you've got a good handle on it. Change art styles. Make it a completely different kind of animal, or make it photorealistic or something. So challenge yourself to try out different ways of approaching the same thing, or do something different content with the same style. So either one of those things could be a good way to develop your skills and develop your thinking and help show you where you want to land eventually, because you are exploring. That's what education is about.
I think we're in a really good spot today because we have YouTube. I said YouTube, but we have so many amazing things around on the internet and Reddit, even, I don't know, weird things that you can look at and see what other people are doing. So it's a really good opportunity to just try different things. Maybe you make a cube and put it in Unity. Great. But just starting to explore that, I think, before you leave high school can be really helpful to understand what you do and don't want to do, and just get a feel for what's out there, so that when you do approach a course, you've already got that in mind, and you're studying or you're looking at all of the other things in practice as well, and you've got a bit of a head start onto that too.
If you've got a cube, turn it into a gelatinous cube and make it dissolve things.
Beautiful. And then you're doing tech art, and wow.
I think we're just in an industry where you kind of never stop learning. I remember, Lauren said when she graduated, well, mine was a long time before that even, right? And I remember that lots of people when, and probably there's lots of young people in the room, but probably your parents and things like that, you kind of went to uni and then that was it. You just went to uni and then you did your job and you didn't sort of do anything else after that, right? But in kind of the art space, 3D, whatever, it's just a constant learning process. You're kind of learning for the rest of your life, right? And that's actually what's really interesting. That's what keeps you excited about being in this industry, is you're constantly learning new things. You're constantly, updating things. You're constantly doing different things, which is super cool, which kind of keeps it fresh. And like George was saying before, there's no problem getting bored with things either. It's fine. I've done, not even going to mention, but I've worked across all the industries, right, over the years. And because you just kind of get bored with things. You're just I've done this for 10 years and I want to try something else. And it's all kind of related, but it's different things. And it's super exciting that you can do a career where you're not just locked into doing, a specific career just for the rest of your life kind of thing. There's all different paths that you can do within that, which is really cool.
I just wanted to also emphasize always learning, because even from a technical side, it's software can change, the technology you're developing for can change. It required a shift in design thinking, moving from consoles and PC to virtual reality. There's just, the way we interact with things can change, and the types of experience people are after might change. So there's always that capacity to learn a new tool or a new technology.
Everyone's fled Unity, and now we get to learn Godot. So there's always something new, and you can explore that and decide it's not for you, and then or you don't have to question whether you should be developing those skills.
Yeah, and I think that's what courses are super valuable for too, because you can get a really quick grasp on the fundamentals and then get a chance to start practicing them and trying them and see different things. But you will be doing your own practice and learning outside of that. You'll have to go home and maybe try something new, and you still do that in games, don't worry. I've worked with plenty of people that on the job will be still looking and researching how to do things, and that's very normal. Things are always changing, especially for fields like technical art, where you're working with particle effects or programming and different scripting languages. You get new tech and you get tools that change all the time, so you need to learn how to use them. And if you're not keeping tabs on that, then you might just be taking a lot longer to do stuff that would be quicker. But it's also very creative and interesting to explore.
A lot of our courses are developed with that kind of skill building in mind. So for example, I co-teach digital games at Flinders, and we have 3 little small exercises. And we have people from across the curriculum in this topic. It's like comms people and computer dev people, and our VED artists, of course. So it's just a wide variety of folks. So we're like, do yourself as a hero or a villain in pixel art. And anyone can figure out pixel art. And then it's just, how good do you want it to be and how big are those pixels? And just play with it for a couple of weeks. And then if you hate it, you never have to do it ever again. But we have second assignment explores narrative, and the third one's a gray box level. So we just let you try to dabble things across what it means to make a game so you can figure out where you have the most affinity and where you want to land on a team. So.
It's like choose your own adventure, but for your life. It's great. We are nearly out of time, so I will wrap up with one question. You can pick, like choose your own adventure. Okay, you get anything else you'd like to mention? Or what's one life lesson you've learned through studying?
Not going first.
Or what did you have for breakfast if you're really stuck?
No, I will go with the life lesson. I think it's really important to, there is the urge always there to compare your work to the work of your idols. For instance, you may have a game that you really like and you want your art to look like that. And that is a pathway, that's where you want to be. But you may not start there. And I have a sentiment where I talk to the first game you make will probably be the worst game you ever make. And that's not to say that it's bad, but it's to say that you are always learning. You will always be improving. And like when you make your second game, that will, if you have been learning and developing those skills, by definition, just be better than the first game you made. So I think, really focusing on the learning and, you will improve. And you don't need to be immediately the best at it, because you will be developing and learning over many years.
So move on from that first game real quick, right? So make it small and then keep it small as you're learning is a good piece of advice. So make lots of games, take lots of opportunities to make things. Don't feel like, I'm gonna design the next Skyrim and spend the next 5 years trying to figure out that one idea that's way too big for one person to do by themselves. So smaller scale for your early projects so that you can focus on your fundamentals and then move on. So.
Yeah, I do want to echo the small things thing. Small things thing is really important. The amount of games that we have done or I've worked on that we've had to do in a short time frame, and then it's like, great, moved on to the next one. Or small assignments or game jams or workshops. That time frame really helps you to go, these are my constraints, I have to make it in this time, and that's it. And you learn from that.
Yeah, and I think there's just sort of, there's not one size fits all, so I think it's sort of, being persistent, having that resilience, just keep going. I see students all the time that some students will get jobs, the day they've graduated, and then other students will get jobs 7 years later, right? So there's no one size fits all, just keep working, keep persisting, keep being resilient, and you'll find, the pathway that you kind of want to do.
Don't be afraid to share your work. If you've made something cool, even if it's not perfect in your eyes, even if it's not totally finished, put it on social media and let people tell you how awesome they think it is. Because they will.
Game jams are good as well.
Yeah.
Like go into a game jam, practice your skills, meet some people. That's a really good way to just turn around a project really quickly. And I know one of the first commercial projects I worked on came from a game jam because we had a much bigger idea that we were trying to make work for our first project and very quickly realized it was way too big for a small 4-person team. And we threw together this prototype in a game jam and went, that's actually a much better first game for us to be able to build and commercialize.
And it's really satisfying when you can do something like that and get it done and you get to play it and people play it. That's incredible. So leverage that.
You can just create your own opportunity for a game jam. They are constantly popping on itch.io. There's just always something. And then if you want to get involved in something more formal, or you see one and you want to do it with a team but you don't have anybody, you could use some of our formal structures like the Games Research Lab, which wants to host game jams, but not all of them. So I have to pick and choose. So whichever one seems to interest people in the moment, I'll make it happen. So it's flexible.
Game jams also let you experiment with your skill set in an environment that feels very low stakes. So that can be quite helpful too, if you struggle with that kind of pressure.
There's often some unis will have clubs as well, like game communities. Even if they don't teach games, often I've found these days that there's more games clubs popping up and they run game jams. You can do them remote to itch.io. A lot of educators will run workshops, which is good just to try different things. And then there's, of course, tutorials online if you want to just get something small done and complete it, or do little small things with your friends. So a lot of opportunities out there. And I think we are out of time, but we will be around for questions. So I think the next one's at 12. So can we ask, do we have an opportunity to do questions, or do we just like... Okay, 2 questions. Whoa, all right. I think this lady with the green, had your hand up first.
I just wanted to have like job opportunity for graduates this year or outside.
Sorry, are you asking if there's any jobs for graduates this year?
Like general positions for graduates this year for students who just graduate.
So
I think that's where you go out on the floor and ask all the companies that are out there, right? Yeah. So yeah, for sure. And I know one company that's hiring right now out there. So just go around and ask, and you'll find those opportunities. Yeah.
Practice your networking and keep an eye out on LinkedIn and things as well. But locally, it really depends on the studio.
You can also just like see the name of the studio, pop onto their website on your phone and go to their careers page and just see what jobs they have posted, if any, and then ask questions about it now that you have them in person.
The white and black shirt here, yeah.
So this is a question particularly for education. Do you think the criteria and restrictions that are provided in education can also help us in the further industry to be able to work with that unifying goal as a group? Because I feel like, yes, you talked about all the soft skills and everything like that, but I think something that is also really important is working with that group to meet that criteria that is set for the developers and stuff like that. So what's your ideas on like the fact that your education system provides that, or the education system provides that restriction?
We usually try to put some kind of meaningful constraint on an assignment, and we try to, again, keep them small. We also try to give opportunities for you to make all the choices. So we want to do a little bit of both, give you full freedom, make anything you want, because we know people have a lot of different interests. Not everyone wants to make a horror game, so I'm not going to make that an assignment. But yeah, to be like, I want to try this one mechanic, or I want to make this one story beat work, or I want to try this one interactive conversation and see how the tree needs to be built so that dialogue is interesting. So yeah, keeping it constrained can be very helpful.
Yeah, I was going to just add from my industry perspective as well, like you might just be working with an art lead or a designer or something, and they have a very specific image of what it is they want. And even if you creatively, you can, in a lot of cases, you can kind of negotiate that. But I think those kind of constraints mimic some of those experiences you may have dealing with an art lead who says it needs to look like this because that's what we've got approved. And as much as you want to make a shiny chrome knight, that's not what we asked for.
More dirt.
Yeah, I would definitely, you make a great point, and you are correct. It's soft skills, but the briefs and the assignments you get will ideally mimic what you're experiencing in a job. So you will often come into creative constraints or technical, like you've only got so long to make something, has to look like this certain art style, or you have to use someone else's code base. So there's a lot of problems that you'll encounter through those assignments that will help you practice that. And I think we are out. That was our 2 questions, but if you want to come chat afterwards, I'll be around. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sorcha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to our panelists as well.